Yes then boys, how are we all doing? My name is TheDonBro and in today's video we have the well requested tips and tricks because I've had like a silly amount of comments and a silly amount of support for helping people in my YouTube video comments, TikTok and everything. So I thought we'll just do a tips and tricks of things that the game doesn't tell you. And little things that I use a lot and things I've found online and things all over the gaff. So we're going to give it a go. We're going to see what we can put in. I've got a quick review of basic hops, pump hops, normal hops, pumping. I'm going to teach you how to pump, how to get speed without having to pedal everywhere, Fakie sliders, and I'm also going to teach you how to do coping stalls and other stuff like stall wise, tweaks that you can do on your bike. I'm going to run you through cassette hub noises, some other things. We'll have a look, but that's like the basis of the video is going to be tips and tricks on everything you need to know in ScootX and BMX Streets because it works simultaneously. So if it works in here for BMX Streets, it most likely works for ScootX as well. So yeah, let's get into it, boys. Okay, so the first thing I reckon we should probably go over is like the most important thing in the game, which is hopping. So you've got multiple styles of hop, really. You've got, if I just stop, turn this way. So you've got the right stick. I'm going to leave my controller input on the screen too, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So that will help you to see what I'm doing and me to see what I'm doing. So the first hop you've got is a normal flick hop, which is down on the right stick and up on the right stick, which is just a normal flick hop. If you push forward and hold it forward, the bike will lean forward. If you pull back, it'll land back wheel. You can also nollie hop, which is up to down, which is similar on skate games. So you've got like a little nollie hop. You've also got right click, so you can click your hop, which again is just the right stick, and you can literally just click it down and he'll do a mini hop. I call it a mini hop. Comes in really handy for if you have a rail here, you do a hop 180 double peg on, you want to do just a little micro hop off to make it look real. And I feel like because he lifts the front wheel up first like a real hop, it looks a bit more realistic when you're coming off a double peg or a double rail, because that's how it'd look IRL. So as well as the right stick click hop, you also have something called a pump hop, which if you look at the left stick on the interface, that's you pumping, and we'll go over pumping soon because that is also one of the biggest fundamentals in this game and ScootX, to get speed, so you don't have to be smashing cranking everywhere full speed. It just, for clip wise, it looks good if you can pump, and it'll save your life. Once you master pumping, bro, you'll be like unbelievable on this game. So for a pump hop, you'd go down and you'd push up as you are flicking the right hop, so it's like that. So you just get a little bit more height compared to the flick hop. It's not a massive height difference. So sometimes, because my settings, if you've seen my settings video, I have trick speed on 0.8. So to do a whip flat, if we just have a little pedal, doesn't really let me do a whip flat. Sometimes it will, sometimes it's a bit sketch. But if I do a proper pump hop, I land it way better. So flick, flick, flick. But again, yeah, sometimes it still won't land it, but it's also good for here. So if I do a right flick, I might not reach this rail here. This is just a right flick hop, but if I do a pump flick hop, I get so much more airtime. And also, if you really want to add some steez to your hops, when you're doing a pump hop, you can press both triggers in and then push forward on your right stick. So both triggers in, push forward on the right stick, and he'll tuck his back end in. This also helps for like clearing gaps. It's a good little trick to learn. Say if you think, oh, I'm not going to reach the end of these stairs, if you tuck hop, you get a little bit more. It just helps for certain things, and it looks quite steezy if you're doing a pump hop, to be fair. So the next thing I'm going to teach you is Fakie Sliders. It's a setting in the game down here. It's called Fakie Sliders. If I find it, 1 second. So it's in tricking, and it's called Fakie Sliders. So what this enables you to do is, I went over it slightly in my settings video, but it means when you do a 180, if you press and hold RB or LB whilst doing a fakie, you can then slide your back wheel, and it's mega sensitive, but it's good for like stees really. If you can get it right. It's a bit of a faff, sometimes it's really sensitive. So for instance, if you wanted to do a little 180 hop down here, you can add a slider in, which looks like this. And it's pretty cool, to be fair. Works pretty nice. Looks pretty good. It's good for like street stees really. But yeah, that's Fakie Sliders. So a lot of people have been asking, how do you stop cassette hubs? Because in fakies, so I'm using a Freecoaster right now, which is, as you can see, my feet don't move with the pedals when I'm going backwards. And when I'm in the air, if I do an air quick, there's no noise. It's absolutely silent. So people straight away, I think, will start, when they start the game, with a cassette hub. If you want a cassette noise, which is the one where your hub makes noise, yeah, you change your back hub. The top 5 are cassette hubs. As you can see at the top, it says compass cassette, performance cassette, and there's 5 colors, and then the rest are Freecoasters. So Freecoasters are the ones that allow you to, whilst you're pedaling, not move your feet, so you coast backwards. Whereas a cassette, he'd roll his feet backwards, and when you're in the air doing tricks, it'd make that ticking noise, you know, like the back wheel ticking. But yeah, that's how you swap the cassette hub to the Freecoaster and etc. So let's get on to one of the most important things in the game. We're going to learn to pump. So we're going to start on a flat base, and then we're going to take it to ramp. So flat base, left stick is to pump. So you push your weight down when you're going down the ramp, and you push your weight back up when you're going up the ramp. So you're basically using this to boost your force on ramps, okay? So to get it to work, just for now, just move your left stick a little bit and then pump whilst moving in and out, and you'll see that you'll gradually gain speed for doing little movements in and out. That is the essence of pumping. Obviously on a ramp it's going to work way different. So down when you're coming down the ramp, up when you're coming up, down at the bottom of the ramp, up, down. Brilliant. So it's down at the bottom of the ramp, down, up, down, up, down, up. And you will eventually teach your hand when's the right time to do a pump. So your left stick, whilst steering, is always going to be doing the pumping, as well as trying to then hop with your right stick. So if you look, I'm always going to be bouncing. If I come up to this ramp, I'm hopping, but I'm not taking off. So I'm turning round and I'm pumping down. I'm going up, down. So I'm almost doing another hop with my right stick, but I'm doing it with my left as well. But I'm doing it in sync. So it's hard to explain, and it's hard to explain and it's hard to teach, but the essence of it is left stick, up and down, up and down, up and down. At the bottom of the ramp, you want to be pulling down to push your weight. And then up the ramp, just as you touch the top of the ramp, you want to be pumping up. It's a really hard one to teach. But when you're priming a hop, if you've primed the hop, you're only using your left stick for like a millisecond, which is now, hop. Now, hop. Down, hop. Down, hop. Down. And eventually, you'll get it where your left stick is just doing it by itself. And it becomes second nature. It's hard to do because obviously you're flicking your right stick as well. But you're doing almost a pump hop every single time when you're riding ramps. So another thing that I actually only found out the other day is I was doing my settings video and I was pressing pause and I was going to settings and I was showing you guys all the settings like this, and then I was coming back and then I was pressing pause, then I was going to settings, then I was coming back. But if you just, whilst playing, the select button on your controller, the one next to pause, you can do it whilst playing. Which I had no idea about, because that would have saved me so much time. And it's such an obvious thing to know, is just to press the button and try it, and then just press B to back out, or whatever circle it is. But yeah, that's crazy, bro. I didn't even know that was a thing. So press select next to pause, and you can edit your settings whilst playing live, which is so handy. So another thing that I get asked a lot, like all the time, is Footjam Whips. Footjam Whips are a pretty important thing if you want to get some style, and they're so easy to do as RT, which is right trigger, or R2 and B, or circle. So RT and B, R2 and circle. It's really easy. They're a little bit of a thing to learn. You have to figure out the best way of doing them. I like to hop forward slightly like this with my left stick after doing a hop, just to get the back end round. Otherwise, when you do it flat, he does like a little bit sketch. So just push forward, hop in, forward, RT and B. And then you have to also then master hopping out of the trick. He does a micro hop out sometimes, but you'll have to master hopping out yourself to get the extra pump to get back in ramps. So you can do them like hopping into ramps, you can do them hopping on top of ramps, you can do them in stalls. They work pretty much all the time if you can get them right. Like, for instance, like that. But again, he slams the front brake on, obviously. So be prepared for it to not work every single time, and learn to hop out of them is probably the biggest feature. They're a bit of a pain in the butt. Sometimes they work amazingly and sometimes they don't. But I tend to only use them for wall rides. Sometimes you can get, if I get enough speed here, for instance, like that. Not the best example. And it's all about timing, and because it's physics based, they're a little bit weird. And whilst we're on the subject of doing Footjam Whips, let's learn to do coping stalls. So for this, I'm going to go over to the bowl, and hopefully we can get some on the bowl. So to be able to do coping stalls, what you're going to want to do is you want to hold RB or R1 the entire time you're coming up the ramp. So if I do it without doing that, if I come up to here, he's just going to do an air and out of the ramp. But again, then you have to use your speed sense to just know when to do it and when not to do it, because it becomes a little bit of a pain. So the best way I've personally found to do it is hopping halfway up the ramp. So it depends on how big the coping is, but you can either right click hop, which is your click down hop, or you can hop just halfway up the ramp with a normal flick, holding RB, up the ramp, click, hop. But again, it's a pain because it only likes to do it on ramps that are more vertical, and there's certain ramps that it'll do it for and certain ramps that it will not do it for whatsoever. And it's a bit of a sketch, but it does work. But you have to work with the game. It's not really a feature, so expect it to not work a lot of the time. But I found that half hopping is way easier coming out the ramp. And then hopping halfway up the ramp, and you'll make it to the coping. But always keep hold of RB or R1 if you want to do a stall. It also helps for coming out of the ramp. If you want to hop halfway up the ramp, for instance, to do a stall and then hop back in. Oh my god, this is so hard to explain, boys. Hop early out the ramp, do your stall, and then hop back in. It's one of them things where you'll just know when's the right speed and the right hop. But again, you fully have to work with the game here. It's sometimes it'll drag you to the coping and it'll be perfect, like that for instance, and then hop back in. Sometimes it just does what it wants. So be prepared for both. The other thing I also have learned is you can do rail rides, but they're a bit of a pain if you use grind assist like me. You can hop on them, but sometimes the grind will take over and you'll end up being pulled onto the rail. If you're coming straight at it, you might get lucky with grind assist on like I've just done. But majority of the time, it's going to put you into a double peg because grind assist. So you can turn grind assist off in the settings. Go to the bottom and go to grind assist. Turn it off. And it should be a little bit easier to hop onto the rail. So another little trick you can do is if you press the triggers whilst riding, he shifts his body weight, as you can see, just like this. Which is another thing you can do is, if you're in a grind, and I got told this by someone in the YouTube comments yesterday, double peg, and you want to get off the rail. I'm so bad at these tutorials, boys, I apologize. Once you're in a double peg, you can then use the triggers to hop off. I'd do the hop, and then I'd press the triggers either right or left, and it'll pull me on or off the rail. And then I've hopped over the rail because I've used the trigger to push my weight to the right, which is a thing that I was needing in ScootX the other day. I was stuck on a rail and I could not get off the rail. So you just hold the trigger and it'll pull you away, and then do a micro hop, which is the click down in the rail. So I want to go up the ramp, click. That is like the handiest thing for coming off the rails, because sometimes when you're doing grinds, you just keep hopping and hopping and hopping, and you're like, oh my god, get off the rail. And I was doing that on ScootX the other day until someone commented saying just hold the trigger and then hop. Massive big up to whoever said that. I'm gonna put your name in the description, because big up to you for teaching me that. That's so handy. There's so many times I'm sat on a rail and I'm like, get off the rail. But because I always want to do double pegs and then hop on to a rail ride. Obviously this rail's really short, so it's quite hard to do, but kind of like that. You could see the fundamental, which is double peg, use the trigger, hop, and then ride the rail, and then 180 off. So it's possible, and I'll appreciate that guy that taught me that. So again, triggers, which is LTRT, L2R2. If you are riding and you want to do a brake, you use B, yeah? But if you want to do a skid, you can use both triggers together and do a skid, for instance, like that, which is almost like a slider, but going forwards. So whilst pedaling, both triggers in. You don't have to spin. I just feel like a spin looks good. And you can do it into, say, a grind or a rail. So skid. That was so sketchy. But you can see that it's both triggers in and then do a skid. And you can hop into the rail. So I think we've caught everything. Other than the cassette hub not working, everything has been shown pretty good. I feel like that is the entire fundamentals of this game for you to get tricking, basically. There's not much of a tutorial in the game at all, so I feel like with these little tips, these will at least help you progress to a point where completely like habit, you don't have to do anything, you just know how to play the game. And it's obviously going to take time for everyone. People learn at different stages. Eventually your hands will just figure it out. The pumping was so hard when I first did it, but because I played the game over and over and over and did clips after clips after clips, it just became second nature to be able to pump. I hope that the tutorial has helped you somewhat. I'm sorry if the tutorial is a bit scatty. My commentary is a bit crap. Trying to explain things is so hard. But a majority of the game is working with the game. And I've said this 100 times. It's learning to play the game with what you can. And then using the buttons also to like merge that in. So a lot of the things, it will do what it wants when it wants. But you'll just figure out ways of coping with it and ways of getting it to work. And eventually you'll just dial it in. You'll just know when to hop. So for instance here, most of the time you'll do an air, but if you hop halfway up the ramp, he'll come out the ramp and then you can do back in. Holding RB, coming up to this rail, get a little rail ride. Again there, I could have just used the trigger to get me off the rail. We'll try it again quick. So we'll go up, hop into the rail. So hold the right trigger and then I've pulled myself off the rail. Again, that's a new feature for me. That is sick. But it's something that I'll now learn to be able to get in and out of rails a lot more easy. So you'd be coming up to here, little hop up here. I want to get back off that way and I've pulled myself back in, which is going to be so much easier for cope installs as well. But if this has helped you boys, because I know there's not a lot of tutorials, tips and tricks. No one's really done it. I think Old Potato released one last night. And then I was going to do mine this morning. So I don't really think there's much tips and tricks out there to learn from. So I hope this has helped you. If it has, drop me a like. Subscribe if you are new. I appreciate every single one of you coming by. And thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.